But the computer can't give you the positive attitude, the collaborative mindset, the cooperative mindset, the expansive thinking mindset. Humans are not going anywhere. If anything, I would argue they're going to become more important.
Welcome to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods, a podcast at the nexus of hospitality, business, culture, and the mind. Now here's your host, Woolco Foods CEO, Stephen Toboroff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. I am your host, Stephen Toboroff, and today I want to discuss a matter that has been talked about quite a bit over the past year or so with respect to businesses as well as with respect to individuals. And that's the technology that has been sort of labeled under the umbrella term artificial intelligence or AI. This is something that I can say from my own experience here at Woolco is happening very quickly. And I think it can be an overwhelmingly positive thing for both businesses and individuals. But whether I think it's positive or not doesn't mean that it's not going to happen and occur. And so I wanted to have a podcast here to discuss what I am seeing and what I think is necessary for businesses as well as individuals, as employees and beyond that. What is necessary for businesses and individuals to thrive in the era of AI rather than be intimidated by it or resentful of it or not process it in what I think is the most constructive manner. So I want to share my thoughts on the subject. And I always encourage people, and I'm always grateful when people do take the time to email me or DM me with their thoughts. But this is one I would really appreciate it if people would give me their perspective as well, because this is a very dynamic situation. And every time I speak to people who are utilizing this technology in one form or another, I learn a great deal, or at least it raises new questions. So please let me know what you think after listening to the podcast. And by all means, DM me or email me with any questions, any comments, suggestions, and all of that. So I want to begin by focusing on businesses first, and then we'll go to individuals and really talk about how this technology can benefit your business. So the first thing, just some general statements, is one, whether it's about AI or anything else in business, but particularly new technology, new innovation, anything that comes down the pike that's new or unfamiliar, I would suggest that the first approach you take is be open-minded. A lot of times, business leaders, at least I've seen this, they can be closed-minded and judgmental and have emotional reactions to trends and dynamics rather than just assess them rationally and try to think about them and how they can utilize them, or as the case may be in certain cases, avoid them with respect to their businesses. We have to understand that, I remember, I'm not going to mention the person's name, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I remember one person many years ago saying that email was BS and that he was going to pick up the phone and that this is sort of an overhyped tool. And I'm sure we can all remember people having things to say about whether it's the internet, whether it's social media, whatever the case may be. The suggestion that I would say is first and foremost approach any information, and particularly information about technology, in an open-minded manner. And really understand that whatever your or my personal preference is as to how the world should operate and what's good and what's not good has absolutely no relevance on these dynamics as they evolve. I know there are people who hate social media and they can tell you why it's a horrible thing for society and all of these other things. But the fact of the matter is that hasn't stopped Instagram and Facebook and Snap and TikTok and all these social media companies from becoming incredibly powerful and, from my perspective, absolutely useful and incredibly cost-efficient tools to help grow sales and raise brand awareness for your business. So at the beginning, and certainly with respect to the subject I'm going to cover today with AI, I would suggest you take an open-minded approach, have a focus on trying to understand what's going on, and understand for yourself that whatever your preferences, biases are, prejudices are with respect to these developments, it's totally irrelevant. And then the final thing that I would say before we get a little bit more specific is once you've done that, and you begin the process of educating yourself or speaking to people, and you understand, hey, this is something that I need to be aware of. This is something that I need to understand. And even if you've evolved to the point where you say, wow, this is stuff that I really want to use and incorporate in my business, then set goals for yourself. You want to have an objective from the beginning as to what it is that you want to achieve with these tools. In other words, you have your goals for your business, you have the core values for your business, you have those things that make your business unique. Now, incorporate, or at least begin questions to incorporate, how it is this technology might benefit, improve, and fit into your business. That would be sort of my initial thoughts on how to approach this as you begin to familiarize yourself. Now, to get more specific, I'm going to share with you how I approach new technology. There's been lots of technology that I've dealt with in my years at Woolco, with the internet, with primitive things that at the time were not so primitive, such as phone trees, up to where we are today. And I'll share with you my approach to that. The first thing I always do is I analyze any technology and my contemplating implementing a technology. First and foremost, how is this going to impact my customers? The most important part of any business is the customer. Your customers are, of course, precious. If you're in a business where you have repeat customers and they're sticky, they're even more precious. So the first question that you need to ask is, if I'm going to use technology that's going to be forward-facing and interacting with my customers, is this a good decision? So I'll give you an example. Way back when phone trees were first being rolled out, and I think now we're going back to the mid to late 90s, maybe before, we were demoed on many of them. And to me, the technology at that time, never mind how you might feel about it now, was clunky and ineffective. And so I rejected it. I said, no, we're going to stick with humans. Now, as I'm sure you've all seen, there are television companies where you have major corporations like Capital One, or I believe State Farm Insurance is another, that actually promote the fact that you'll always be able to speak to a person. Now, this is in 2024. That means that the fundamental challenges and dissatisfaction that emanates from people using these phone trees on the customer side is so negative that companies are not only not using them, they're advertising the fact they don't use them. So that's a classic example of a technology that unless you feel very confident that it fits for you, you don't want to implement. But the broader question, of course, is, as I just said, if I'm going to start onboarding some new and disruptive, if you will, substantial technology that's going to be forward-facing to my customers, is this something that's good or bad? Okay? The second question, which is derivative of this but somewhat distinct, we talked about the importance of customers. That's the most important part of a business. But what enables us to get and retain customers is the value proposition or value propositions that our businesses offer. And so you have to ask yourself, will implementing this technology undermine or degrade or diminish a core value proposition that I have? So, for example, maybe your business is such that the connection that you make with your customers when having a certain interaction with them is accretive to the value proposition that you bring. And if you use AI or any other technology, the customer would be happy with it and you could get it done, wouldn't impact the customer negatively, but it would somehow damage that value proposition. It would somehow change it. Well, then you might want to consider looking at it because you don't want to use technology in a way that's going to make your value proposition less valuable. Sometimes you can't avoid it, and if that is an intersection that occurs, then you have to look at things rather deeply. But the point that I'm making is know what your value propositions are, and unless you absolutely have to, or you're doing it in an incredibly tactical and thoughtful manner, don't onboard technology that undercuts or undermines your key value propositions. And so before I move on, those are the two core factors that you need to consider with respect to implementing technology that is going to be forward-facing to your customer. You know your customer better than anyone, and you probably know your value propositions better than anyone as well. And so just because technology seems great and is working in 9 industries out of 10 or 99 out of 100, it may not be right for your industry. And if it is correct for your industry, it may need to be altered and curated to accommodate your good or service. But always think about the customer first, because that's the most important part of any business. Now, let's talk a little bit about how technology can improve and can be rolled out and under what circumstances to improve the operations of your business, the back office aspects of your business, things that are not forward facing to the customer, if you will. The first question I ask myself is, will this technology do one of the following things? Will it improve efficiencies, cut costs, enhance employee morale, or enhance our brand? Those are 4 key aspects of what I think are essential for my business, and I think for any business. So now we're not dealing with the customer anymore. We're looking inward. And if I'm going to spend money and time and effort and potentially impact the culture of my company, which is extremely important to me, I want to first ask myself, how will this improve efficiencies, cut costs, enhance employee morale, or our brand? So, number one, efficiency in any business is key. Speed with accurate execution is key. Accuracy is key. So we're a broadline distributor. So we're in the business of doing a lot of different things for our customers. But a big part of what we have to do to be successful is we need to be accurate. We need to be fast. We need to be reliable, efficient. If technology will improve the speed of what you do or the accuracy of what you do, that's very positive and powerful. And it's something that I would absolutely look at and do. I'm always looking to improve speed, because in business, speed is essential. If I can make it so we can process things faster, or load our trucks faster, or pay our bills in a more efficient manner that enables us to get discounts or get paid quicker, any of these things that enhance speed or accuracy, I look at, and I think it's a very valuable thing that technology can bring. So by all means, do that. Now, as you're thinking about doing this, of course, understand that any investment in technology is going to have hard costs and soft costs. First, you're going to have to put up some money. Money is the fuel of any business, right? So you don't want to just waste it in a vainglorious effort and not understand that the investment that you're going to make is going to be paid back to you and then some, right? It's not something to do haphazardly, and it's not something to do thoughtlessly. So if I'm going to take on technology that's going to cost me a certain amount of money, but it's going to improve my inventory turns or how quickly I can turn our accounts receivable or anything else, as long as I see a monetary value proposition there as far as efficiency is concerned, then that's an investment I'm going to make. But it's something to absolutely look at and not just simply accept, okay? Now, with respect to the employees' morale, that is something that is difficult, if not impossible, to financially calculate, but yet it is incredibly important. When you're in a service business, as I am, but I would say this goes for any business, and there have been many great business leaders who have framed it this way, the way you treat your employees, their experience is as important or more important than the customers. And one of the most valuable things that you can provide for your employees is a sense of pride and high morale in the workplace for them. Obviously, people work for pay, they work for compensation. But if you have talented people, they want to really express themselves creatively, intellectually. They want to be part of an organization that they're proud of so that they can say, yes, we're a very forward-thinking company here, and we're not afraid of utilizing technology, and we're not afraid of doing things differently. We're not afraid of improving. So if there's technology that you can onboard that is going to make the employees' lives better or enhanced in the execution of their jobs, and it may not immediately translate into revenue that you can see, but your various teams are much more excited and proud when they come to work, over time that's going to pay off a lot. So let me think if I can give an example of that, and I think I have just come up with an example of that. Very simple. I like to make sure that the people here, and then certainly one employee in particular I can think of, this employee is super into data accumulation, data mining, tech. He has 3 super fast, beautiful monitors. Now, could he get the job done with 2? Sure. But having that third monitor makes it easy. It reflects to him correctly his level of commitment and professionalism in what he's doing. And it underscores our belief and support for that professionalism. So giving the team employees, whether it's software, hardware, that may be more powerful or better than what they would need, that's, in my mind, a very worthwhile investment because one, you're showing that they're important, which they are, of course, and two, you're reinforcing your value that, yeah, we're going to be forward thinking. We're going to outthink, outsmart, out innovate. Well, if that's a core value, if that's something that you're proud of and your team's proud of, then you have to have investments in technology better. You can't just talk about it and then not do it. Okay. And then the final one is, will the technology enhance your brand? Our brand is something that, again, difficult to financially measure in a very obvious way, but one of the key components, if not the component of a brand, is how are you perceived in the marketplace by your customers, by your prospective customers, by your employees, by the community? What are you viewed as? In other words, when people see your company's logo or hear your company's name, what thoughts come to their mind? That's your brand. And the brand is essential in each and every one of those instances, right? Because obviously, if you want to have a great brand so that your customers feel proud that you're their vendor, that they feel proud that they could say to their friends and their colleagues and other people, yeah, we do business with this company. We do business with Woolco. And the same thing, of course, is for prospective customers. People who aren't customers yet, someone from your sales team calls on them, or they get an email, or they see social media ad, or they go to our website. They have a little bit of understanding about who we are as a company that instills a sense of confidence, respect, appreciation, etc. So anytime you can use technology to enhance your brand, again, not as simple as financially determining what the savings are, but it's absolutely, I think, a good value because by enhancing your brand, you never know where that's going to lead. Just to give the most basic but truthful and obvious example, if you enhance your brand so that somebody one day is walking by and sees one of your trucks or sees a digital media ad and says, you know what, I just had a horrible experience with my vendor, I'm calling these guys up. And that becomes $1 million a year customer for the next 15 years. I don't need to tell you the ROI on such like that. So again, anything you can do to enhance your brand using technology, let's do it. Now, I know I've been sort of a little bit broad here in technology and not mentioned AI because I think AI is an umbrella term that encompasses a lot of stuff. But I am going to talk about AI with a little more specificity now as I sort of tie it into human beings, individuals, and employees, because the common understanding of artificial intelligence, and anyone who's used ChatGPT as a very basic example can see that there are things that humans used to do and sometimes do well and sometimes do poorly that would take quite a bit of time. ChatGPT, and this is, of course, one of countless AI tools, and it's just one example of an AI tool that can be used in a lot of different contexts than just writing emails, writing essays, writing software. But people who've used ChatGPT can realize that it can be used to do something very quickly, efficiently, and accurately that it would take a human being a lot of time to do, and maybe they wouldn't do it quite as well. So now I want to get a little bit more specific that when I'm talking about AI, I'm talking about things where software can disintermediate a human being, that the software can do what the human does better, faster, all of those things than the human. Earlier, we talked about businesses. I used the broad phrase technology because there is technology that exists outside of AI. Now let's get right to it with AI and human beings. How are human beings going to thrive in this era of AI? Because it's not going away, it's only going to accelerate. And I believe that there are going to be people that are really going to thrive, and there are people, unfortunately, that are really going to have issues because this is extraordinarily unique and powerful technology. So the first thing is, at a baseline level, you want to have people on your team that are comfortable using the AI software tools that you make the decision to implement, people that want to learn how to use them effectively, people that are really comfortable with and desirous of interacting, using, and maximizing the value of the software. The initial thought that a lot of people are going to have is that, oh, wow, this is software that's going to replace me. That's not correct. There's always going to be need for humans. This is not the first technological revolution that we've had. This is not the first time in history where people have said to themselves, what's going to happen? I mean, if you think about it, the entire world was largely an agricultural-based economy. And then if you think about all the tools that have come along that have replaced the need for humans in agriculture, you would think, wow, there's not going to be anything for people to do. And yet, of course, look at the world we're in today. Then they moved into factories. And you had, of course, the Industrial Revolution there. So the first thing is, people who are not thinking big picture are going to think, wow, this is going to really damage me. You want to encourage your key people. No, it's not going to damage you. It's going to make you more valuable, and it's going to enhance what you can do. But it can't do that if you're resistant to being as familiar and as comfortable and as efficacious as possible using the tools. That's baseline level one. Level two, employees and humans are going to have to adopt a positive attitude. Now that we have tools, and they exist, and we use them here, and companies across the country using them, there are tools that exist that can absolutely disintermediate a lot of work that humans have done. So the humans that you keep in your organization, the key employees, you're going to want them to have a few things, which are within our control to generate. Positive attitude. You want to have people that have a positive attitude and that reflect that positive attitude in their ability to be cooperative and to effectively collaborate with people. The day of the difficult person and the bad personality and the disruptive person, those are going to be the first people that are going to be gone, because you're not going to have to tolerate that downside of them to get the necessary upside, because the necessary upside is going to be done by a computer and you won't need them. But the computer can't give you the positive attitude, the collaborative mindset, the cooperative mindset, the expansive thinking mindset. Humans are not going anywhere. If anything, I would argue they're going to become more important. I've seen this. I'm going to analogize this to something that may or may not seem intuitively correct, but a lot of people, because people tend to take technology too far in their minds. So when these meal delivery apps were becoming ubiquitous, people were saying, oh, wow, well, this is going to really hurt restaurants because people are just going to stay at home. And why would you go out when you can get all these meals delivered and you couldn't get them delivered before? That was very common thinking. It may seem foolish now. I never believed it. I said, no, people are not going to relegate themselves to solitary confinement just because they can get food delivered, because there's a lot more that is involved and a lot more pleasure that is derived from going to a restaurant than simply getting the food. And lo and behold, those businesses that make the most money using meal delivery apps are the ones that have the most successful brick and mortar restaurants. And I've done podcast episodes on the past in this, so I'm not going to repeat those arguments here. Suffice it to say that humans are not going anywhere. And the capable employees that can have a phenomenal attitude, be collaborative, be expansive thinkers, be creative, they're going to become much more valuable because they're going to become much more in demand. So you want to be an asset to those around you. You want to be an asset to the company. You want to really activate your intellect, okay? You want to be somebody that is always looking for opportunities to take advantage of things that are not currently there, and that the software can only do what it's being told to do. And you're going to need the humans to do a lot of things, but one of them is to be a forecaster, to be a visionary, to say, hey, have we tried this? Have we done that? Ask questions. So that's a very important part of what is required. Being an effective communicator is going to be essential. Again, in the old days, a lot of stuff was tolerated that's not going to need to be tolerated anymore. If you're an effective communicator, you're going to be so in demand. Why? Let me give another analogy. I can be texting my wife back and forth, but sometimes the conversation gets lost and you have to pick up the phone and straighten it out. Sometimes you have to speak with people to convey an emotional component. You have to speak to people to explain a nuanced component. There's all kinds of things that exist in communication that cannot be replicated by the software. And I'm going to give a tip here or a prediction, whatever. The companies that go too far and try to squeeze too much out of this and completely throw the towel in on humans, they're going to be very vulnerable because it's going to be just like the restaurant. Your customers are going to absolutely want to see a human come in and talk to them about what's going on if it's a sales capacity. They're going to absolutely want to speak to somebody if there's an issue that they want resolved. They're going to want to know that they're not alone. It's a lonely feeling just dealing with a piece of software. So, out of all of the skills that I think you need to cultivate to thrive in the era of AI, I got to believe that communication skills is at the top of the list. We talked about collaboration, we talked about positive attitude. Those are all incredibly important. But in business, we're dealing with other people. So you could have a great attitude and you could be somebody that is happy to collaborate. And the collaboration for you is people telling you what to do and you do it happily and you ask questions and you're a great asset to the team in that way. And that's incredibly valuable and important. But you need to get to the point where you can communicate really well, communicating with your coworkers, communicating with the customers. That's going to be a skill that people underestimate, but is going to become much more important. Because remember, people are going to be essential in any part of business, one way or another. But the skills that we're going to be looking for are going to be different. I could give an example, and I could be wrong on this one. I'm giving this example not to make any sort of forecast, but just to make a point. Computer programmers are incredibly important right now, and they probably will continue to be so. And there's a stereotype that these are people that are massively introverted, want to be by themselves, can be idiosyncratic, and just leave them alone to code software. I don't know if that skill set is going to be as valuable in the next 10 years as someone who's a phenomenal communicator, is well-read in literature and philosophy, is comfortable with expansive thinking, iterative thinking, maximizing the iterative capacity of the mind. Those types of skills and those people may very well be in greater demand in 10 years than someone who's an amazing coder. Because I can easily envision a scenario where coding could be done with a lot less people. So if you're in a job and you love what you do, you love your industry, and you're concerned about this because, as with everything, the media likes to get attention by scaring people and oversimplifying, and you're worrying, well, what's this going to mean for me? The reason I've done this segment in the podcast is to share with you what I'm looking for and what, by the grace of God, I have in my team. My key people are very cooperative, great communicators, collaborative, all of that. If you can be that way, do that. If you're a younger person just beginning your career, understand that the skills that I've articulated, I believe, are going to be much more valuable and important. And it would be a good idea to invest some time in them and not just view them as unnecessary. And I'll give one final suggestion because I ultimately I do these podcasts because I want to create value for those of you that take the time to listen. I definitely have gotten value from the DMs and the emails I've gotten. I'm not doing this to build up a social media following. I like dialogue. I like thinking. I like interacting and learning. And so I really want to emphasize something I've emphasized in the past. Reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, probably the most important book I've ever read on communicating. Finding great works of literature or philosophy or history. And even if you're not somebody that doesn't like to read, there's audiobooks. If you don't like listening to an audiobook, you could probably watch videos. But that part of the mind, that ability to sort of be empathetic and intuitive and interact with people and think expansively and creatively, I think it's going to be much more important than ever before. And those are some suggestions on how to cultivate that skill. So that's basically all that I have in my notes on the subject, but I do want to end on an optimistic note. Technology has been evolving forever, and it will continue to evolve forever. And at every point in that evolutionary process, there were doom and gloom scenarios that paralyzed people with fear. And those that were paralyzed with fear lost. But there were also the people who did not react that way, who looked at things analytically, identified opportunities, and executed on those opportunities, And they turned these technological revolutions and innovations into incredibly positive outcomes for their companies and for themselves. And the same exists now in the era of AI. So don't be afraid and don't overthink it and don't get emotional and don't get judgmental, in my opinion. Instead, be open-minded, be eager to learn, be committed to self-development and the skills that make us human, that make it wonderful to be human, and bring that to your career and your business. And I believe if you do that, there's going to be a high probability of really leveraging these new software tools to enhance your business, your life, and your career. So with that, I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen. Again, if you want to reach out to me, you can email me at steven@woolcofoods.com. You can DM me on Instagram @WoolcoFoods. I always appreciate hearing from everybody. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean a lot to me if you would give it a 5-star rating or drop a comment on iTunes or anything to show that you enjoyed it. It does help us in the algorithm reach more people. And other than that, I just want everybody to have an awesome, awesome day.
Thank you for listening to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. Please be sure to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And to learn more about Woolco Foods or Steven Toboroff, please visit us at woolcofoods.com.